Advanced Graph Rag 2, the next 5 families. Let's dig in. Part 2b left you with a mental model and absolutely no vocabulary. 2 clocks, event time, when a fact was true out in the world, and ingestion time, when your system found out. That is the entire prerequisite for today. And if it feels shaky, go back and watch Part 2b first, because everything here is built on top of it. What we add now is the unglamorous half. We give those 2 clocks actual names, actual fields, and actual boundaries. Nothing today is hard. It is just precise. And precision turns out to be a completely different skill from insight.
Here is the plan, and the plan is deliberately slow. There are 4 numbers to learn today. In the first version of this material, all 4 of them landed on a single slide at once, and the honest result was that nobody learned any of them. So this time, each number gets its own slide and its own picture, and we do not move on until it has landed. 2 of them belong to the world's clock. 2 of them belong to your ledger's clock. You may be mildly bored for the next few minutes and then extremely grateful. I will take that trade.
Number 1, and it belongs to the world's clock, T_valid_from, which I will just say as valid from. It is when the fact started being true out there in reality. Dana Reyes becomes Chief Technology Officer at Helios Systems in March, so valid from is March. Now, notice what this number is not. It is not when anybody wrote it down, and it is not when you read about it. It is a claim about the world, and the world does not consult your database before changing. This is the field most teams are certain they already have, right up until you ask them to prove it.
One warning before we move on, because this one bites people. Valid from is almost never measured. It is inferred, usually by a language model reading an ordinary sentence, like Dana started at Helio last spring, and quietly turning that into a date. Sometimes the text says it outright, and you are fine. Very often it says 2 weeks ago, and the extractor has to know what day it was reading to work out what that means. So this field carries real uncertainty, and a grown-up system records that uncertainty instead of pretending the 1st of March is a fact of physics.
Number 2, same clock, other end, T_valid_2, which I will say as valid 2. It is when the fact stopped being true in the world. Dana was Chief Technology Officer at Meridian Labs until March, so on that particular edge, valid 2 is March. Put the 2 together, and you can finally answer for how long was this true, which is a question a plain graph simply cannot express. And notice something quietly important. Setting this field deletes nothing. The old fact keeps its place in the store, it just acquires an ending. And a fact with an ending is still a fact.
Now the special case, and it is the one that trips up every code review I have ever sat in. What do you put in valid 2 for a fact that has not stopped being true? You put nothing at all. Empty. Null. And empty here does not mean unknown, and it does not mean we forgot to fill it in. It means, as far as we know, this is still running. Dana's Helio edge has an open right end, so read it as an arrow, not as a gap. Most facts in a healthy store look like this, which is a strong hint about which code path to test first.
Number 3, and now we change clocks entirely, T_ingested. This is when your system learned the fact. Dana moved in March. Your assistant finally read the announcement in July, so ingested is July. Here is the lovely part. You do not have to infer this one because you were there when it happened. Your pipeline stamps it, it only ever moves forward, and nobody has to guess, which makes it a completely different animal from the first 2 numbers. The world's clock is estimated. The ledger's clock is observed. Same fact, 2 very different kinds of certainty.
Number 4, same ledger clock, other end, T_expired. It is when your system stopped standing behind the fact, not when the fact became false out in the world, but when your store stopped asserting it,
which are genuinely different events that are usually months apart. In our story, your assistant works out in July that the meridian edge had actually ended back in March. So that record ends in March on the world's clock and in July on the ledger's clock. How a system decides to close a record is the entire subject of Part 2D, so I am leaving it completely alone today. Right now, it is just a field with a meaning.
Let's stop and stare at the two you are going to confuse, because everybody does, including me, roughly twice a year. Valid to and expired both mean ended, and they end completely different things. Valid to ends the fact in the world. Dana genuinely stopped being Meridian's chief technology officer in March. Expired ends the belief in your ledger. Your system stopped asserting it in July. Reality versus record. World versus ledger. If you take exactly one sentence away from this video, take that one, and some future version of you will be grateful at 2 in the morning.
Right. That is all 4 of them. So let us finally put them onto the same edge and look at the thing whole. Here is one record from our store. Dana Reyes is Chief Technology Officer of Meridian Labs, exactly as it was first written down. On the world's clock, it opens at valid from, which is last year when Dana actually took the job. On the ledger's clock, it opens at ingested, February, the day your pipeline first wrote it down. On the ledger's clock, it closes at expired, July, the day your system finally stopped asserting it. And valid to on the world's clock is empty. That blank is not a bug in my slide. That blank is precisely where April's confidently wrong answer came from.
Here is the regrouping that makes all 4 stick. You are not carrying around 4 independent numbers. You are carrying 2 pairs, and each pair is a range. Valid from and valid to are the world pair, how long the fact was true. Ingested and expired are the ledger pair, how long you asserted it. 2 ranges, 1 per clock, both stored right there on the edge. And a small honesty note. Different systems spell these fields differently, and we will meet several of those spellings later in this part. The 4 roles never change. Only the names do.
The world pair has a proper name and a proper notation, and both are worth 10 seconds of your attention. The pair is called the validity interval, and we write it like this: square bracket, valid from, comma, valid to, and then a round bracket to close. Square bracket on the left means the start instant is included. The moment valid from arrives, the fact is true. Round bracket on the right means the end instant is excluded. At the very instant valid to arrives, the fact is already over. 1 bracket in, 1 bracket out. That mismatch looks like a typo, and it is the single most deliberate thing on this slide.
So why the lopsided brackets? Because facts hand over to each other, and the handover instant has to belong to exactly one of them. Dana's meridian roll ends in March. Priya's meridian roll starts in March. Same instant, 2 facts. Half-open ranges settle it without an argument. The instant belongs to whoever is starting, never to whoever is finishing. Consecutive facts then tile the timeline perfectly, with no gap and no overlap. And the successor's start can be set to exactly the predecessor's end with no ambiguity at all. It is a small convention that removes an entire category of bug.
Let's actually test that claim, because it is easy to say and much more convincing to watch. Here is one instant in time, the exact moment in March when the roll changes hands. And here are the 3 conventions you could have chosen. If both ends are closed, that instant belongs to both facts, and your query cheerfully reports that Dana and Priya are simultaneously Chief Technology Officer of the same company. If both ends are open, the instant belongs to neither, and your query returns nothing at all, which is arguably worse because it looks like an outage. Half open, and the instant lands in exactly one place. One answer every time, including on the boundary. That is the whole argument. The ledger pair works identically.
which is genuinely all you need to know about it. Ingested and expired form their own half-open range. The store asserted this record from the moment it was written up to but not including the moment it was retired. Same brackets, same reasoning, different clock. And the empty case reads the same way too. An empty expired means we still assert this, exactly as an empty valid 2 means it is still true. Two ranges, two possible open ends, one consistent rule. That symmetry is not an accident, and in about 90 seconds, it is going to earn its keep. Now we get to spend the two clocks. And here is the idea the whole submodule has been walking toward. What was true in April, and what did we believe in April, are not the same question. The first one asks about the world, so it pins the event clock to April and lets the ledger clock run all the way to today, using everything you have learned since. The second one asks about your store, so it pins both clocks to April and refuses to use anything learned afterwards. One is history, the other is a faithful replay. A single clock system cannot tell those two apart, which is exactly why it can never explain its own past mistakes. So how does a store actually answer either question? With two range tests, one per clock, and that is genuinely the entire mechanism. Test 1 on the world's clock, valid from is less than or equal to your event date, which is strictly less than valid 2. Test 2 on the ledger's clock, ingested is less than or equal to your ledger date, which is strictly less than expired. A record comes back only if both tests pass. And an empty end just reads as infinity, so an open-ended fact passes the right-hand half of its test automatically. Two comparisons per clock, one logical and. You could write it on a napkin. To run those tests, we need something to run them against. So here is the entire store, 4 rows, and you should read it once slowly. Row 1 is Dana at Meridian, as it was first written. True from last year, no end recorded, learned in February, retired in July. Row 2 is the same fact rewritten in July, now with its March ending filled in. Rows 3 and 4 are Dana at Helio and Priya at Meridian, both true from March, both learned in July. Notice that 3 of these 4 rows arrive on the same day, because that is the day the announcement was finally read. And notice nothing was overwritten. The store grew.
Query 1. What was actually true in April, given everything we know today? Event clock pinned to April, ledger clock set to now. Row 1 fails on the ledger test because we retired it in July, and today is after that, so we no longer assert it. Row 2 passes the ledger test, but fails the world test, because April is not inside last year up to March. Row 3 passes both. Dana was Chief Technology Officer at Helio Systems in April. Row 4 passes both as well. Priya Raman was running technology at Meridian. 2 rows come back, and they are the right 2. The store just told you the truth about a month it originally got wrong.
Query 2, same date, completely different question. What did the store actually believe in April? Now both clocks are pinned to April, so anything learned in July simply does not exist yet. Rows 2, 3, and 4 were all ingested in July, so all 3 fail the ledger test immediately and vanish. Row 1, though, passes both tests. It was asserted from February and not retired until July, and its world range had no ending recorded yet. So the answer comes back as Dana Reyes, Chief Technology Officer of Meridian Labs. That is wrong about the world, and it is a perfect, faithful reproduction of the answer your assistant gave in April.
Sit with that for a second, because it is the payoff. Same store, same date, 2 answers that flatly disagree, and neither of them is a bug. One tells you what was true in April. The other tells you what you were saying in April. You need the first one to be correct, and you need the second one to explain yourself. And that second one is the answer nobody can produce from a single clock store at any price. This is the difference between a system that quietly fixes its mistakes and a system that can show you exactly which mistake it made and when.
Before this sounds exotic, let's talk about the query you will run 99 times out of 100. Both clocks set to now. What is true as far as we currently know? That is the ordinary current view, the thing every non-temporal store gives you by default. And here, it falls straight out of the same predicate, with no special code path at all, which is the practical point worth carrying to work. Bi-temporal storage does not replace your normal query. It makes your normal query one setting of two dials that were always there, and you only ever move a dial when somebody asks a harder question. One last picture, and it is the one to keep. Draw event time along the bottom and ingestion time up the side, and every fact in your store stops being a line and becomes a rectangle. How long it was true crossed with how long you asserted it. Every question you can ask is then just a point on that plane. Slide the point to the top right and you get today's view of today. Slide it down the side and you drop into a past belief. Slide it left along the bottom and you look further back into the world. Two dials, one plane, and every question you have ever wanted to ask your memory lives somewhere on it.
So here is what those two dials actually bought you, written out as 4 questions. What is true now, which is the boring one you already had? What was true in March, which is history, and which needs only the world's clock? What did we believe on the 3rd of April, which is debugging, and which needs only the ledger's clock? And the 4th one, which is the reason anybody builds this. On the 3rd of April, what did we believe about March? 2 clocks, independently pinned. That is the audit question, and it is unanswerable without everything in this video.
Let's close the loop. You came in with 2 clocks and no way to write them down. You leave with 4 fields, 2 half-open ranges, a 2-line predicate, and the ability to ask what a memory believed on a date rather than merely what it holds today. Everything so far has been the read path, and the read path is the easy half. What we have carefully not touched is the moment a new fact walks in and disagrees with an old one. Who notices? How do you decide? And what exactly gets written? That is part 2D. It is where this gets genuinely opinionated, and I will see you there.
If you like this video, please subscribe and share. Thank you.